How do you maintain your happiness?
Well, again, if it's a pleasurable sensation, to maintain it leads to exhaustion. You have to go again and again, put on triggers and sensations, and then you cannot maintain it, because it's like a candle that burns itself. There's a fatigue element in the enjoyment of pleasure. At some point you cannot maintain. If you want to go further and make it artificially, say like people who use, I don't know, ecstasy or whatever. The problem here is that you are momentarily maintaining it, but you are, from neuroscience point of view, again building up another circuit which is different than enjoyment, which is wanting. And that's very tricky, because it's a different network in the brain. So you build up the wanting because it's pleasurable. At some point there's an exhaustion of the pleasurable aspect, but the wanting has been built up. So you want something that doesn't bring you any more satisfaction. That's why you are hooked. So maintaining happiness is, so unlike pleasure, the more you experience happiness as a way of being, the more it gets deeper, stronger, because it has to do also with wisdom, it has to do with training. So, and therefore, you not only sustain it, but you actually keep on cultivating it as a skill. And then you are more and more able to have the resources to deal with the ups and downs of life. So you don't only sustain it, you actually enhance it through training. Because you are training, not pleasure, but you are training kindness, freedom from all the wandering thoughts, and all those skills that actually makes you deal with everything in a much more sort of balanced way.
Can I ask, presumably you still have cravings for things, I don't know, like money
or something like that.
Yeah. So how do you
avocados?
How do you overcome the sort of more destructive cravings that you might have?
Well, that's a good point, of course. I mean, to have inclination for things in itself may not necessarily be too wrong. If it doesn't become craving, not to enjoy something, again, it's the distinction between a nice hot shower and craving, which is becomes with thirst. And thirst, there's a good example in Buddhist literature. It's like craving is like drinking salty water. The more you drink, the more you feel thirsty. So this is a vicious circle. So when you have understood that, and they say, no, should I be addicted to the cause of suffering or not? So then the wisdom aspect comes perspective. What is really good for my life? Yes? Yeah. Why should you do things that are just repeatedly bringing you suffering? This is kind of silly. Yeah. So now the concept of so-called renunciation, that is very, first it's a wrong translation. Renunciation is not about giving up what's really good in life. What I mean really good is not what we might think is really good, but what's actually bringing happiness. That would be absurd. But renouncing the cause of suffering, that's what we want. Yeah. So now, then wisdom has to come in what is truly contributing to my flourishing in life. That I should pursue. All the other things, why should I bother? So that's the making a hierarchy and distinguishing. That's the first step. Then you just sort things out.
Okay.
So that's the point.
Okay, thank you.
Did you realize at some point you were officially happy?
I don't know. When I was a teenager, it didn't mean much. Happiness. We don't think in those terms. Now we do experience, joy, sadness, melancholy, and all that stuff. But we don't sit and say, oh, I'm happy or not, how much, and all this thing. I don't think so, isn't it? So, and then I think it's more when you start thinking, what do we really want in life? Then you start to recognize this notion of things that contribute to some kind of well-being and something that repeatedly makes you miserable. So you get some idea that there is a kind of two ways of experiencing things, an unsatisfactory one and a deeply satisfying one. But then you can start conceptualizing that and thinking of happiness, suffering, and so if you, because thinking about that and clarifying those concepts is helpful. If you know where you are going, then you will be better guided as to how to accomplish that. If you aim at a target shooting an arrow, if you don't see the target and if you blindfold, and you might hit sometime but you don't even know why. But if you investigate the mechanism of happiness and suffering, then you get more interest in what constitutes happiness, what constitutes suffering. So then you start thinking more in those terms. While I think when we are younger, we just more like feel those things and then experience that and say, oh, no, this thing didn't feel right, or I feel very good when I do that. But maybe we don't, in a way, it's nothing wrong with not conceptualizing, but I think when we realize that there's ways to enhance that through skills and cultivation, then we need to have a clearer idea of distinguishing pleasure from happiness, what brings misery, what brings happiness. It's not just a philosophical and conceptual pursuit, because it translates into what you are going to experience.